Chris, would you call the roll, please?
Regent Ferris.
Here.
Regent Griscom. Here. Regent Reynolds. Here. Regent Roddy is here somewhere. And Regent Gatz. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is a report regarding the 2011-2012 Technology Access Spending Plans. And I would like to call on Vice Chancellor Sims at this time to give us a report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Real briefly, the technology access fees are assessed for a given purpose to support technology for students. We go through a process every year where every institution prepares a spending plan, a budget for use of those fees. We then select a sample of institutions and essentially do a pre-audit to ensure that they are budgeting those funds appropriately. This year we selected 2 universities, 3 community colleges, and 7 technology centers, and our review revealed no problems with their spending plans. This is just an informational item, requires no action.
Dale, for the newer members, could you explain a little bit why we have this, the reporting and the purpose of this, so they'll have a better understanding about that?
I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman. This fee originally was I'll say a rather modest fee, probably goes back, I think, 10 years or so. But due to technology developments and the inability of state government essentially to fund technology needs, a pretty significant increase in this fee was implemented, I think, 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. At that point in time, the board was concerned that these fees be used for purposes that benefited students and not be used to support the general technology needs of institutions. So there was a regime put in place where these monies, we had spending plans submitted by every institution. We reviewed every institution's spending plan annually, and then every institution, when the year closed, they submitted their actual spending, and that was audited by internal audit. Those steps, we believe, were appropriate initially as people became familiar with what these fees could be used for. As time went on, we really saw fewer and fewer problems, and we really were dedicating an inordinate amount of staff resource, both in internal audit and in the finance area, reviewing reports that were really not revealing any problems. With the board's permission, I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, you've allowed us to go to a pre-audit on the budgets so that every institution knows that there's an opportunity that we will look at their spending plan for technology access fees. And then on the back end, there's still an audit protocol based on, I think it's a risk assessment basis. So this is really about ensuring that a dedicated student fee that is paid for technology support is used for the purposes for which it was raised.
Anybody have any questions about that? Any questions? Any members? All right, I think that's just informational.
Correct.
Dale, if you go, I guess, the next item.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I had been asked, and if it's appropriate at this point in time before I move to the next business item, as an information matter, there had been a request by Tennessee State to implement a debt service fee adjustment to support renovations of Hale Stadium. I'd like to give an update, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate at this time.
Sure.
All right. That is not an item, I should note, that is before you for action today. That project, the background on that project is, as many of our institutions in the last year to 2 years, TSU is going through planning for its centennial celebration. And for those of you who have had the opportunity to be on the TSU campus, you understand that Hale Stadium is right there at the front door to the campus. And it is not a very appealing image that a person is left with when they come on that campus. The condition of the facility does not, and its surrounding does not present itself for use. There are issues with the stadium, its seating, et cetera. As part of their centennial celebration, they wanted to make some use of that stadium, given its historic role within that campus. That was the genesis of their request. Based on, I should say, lots of productive discussion with board members and Dr. Shields and others at TSU, what has been agreed to is use of some level of institutional funding in order to, I'm going to call it the paint up, patch up, demolish structures that need to be demolished, so that there is an enduring result. In other words, it is not just about, as we've described previously, it could be about bringing 2 or 3 football games to that stadium in the centennial year, but primarily it's about cleaning up that front entrance to where you don't have a dilapidated building right there as you enter campus. It's about making that more attractive, and it's about creating, frankly, a venue that, whether it is football in 2012 or pep rallies in years after, or just general gathering space, that we do have a space that students can gather and that outdoor events can take place in a safe, comfortable environment. So that's just the report. That project, based on that paint up, repair, clean up, was taken to the Building Commission, I think, earlier this week, and received approval of the Building Commission, and we'll be proceeding on that basis, really taking a short-term view of let's clean up that image, that entrance to the campus, which is a value that is a long-term value to the campus.
Did anyone have any questions on Dale's report on this?
Well, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. This is a little bit different tact than the $1 million or whatever we were talking about on the stadium back at our last committee meeting, right?
Regent Reynolds, the dollar value, unfortunately, the dollar value to do the demolition work and the repair work to make that stadium usable for any purposes is in that range, $1 million and $1.5 million. Now, we have authority to use up to $1.5 million. It's still left up to the institution and our facilities people to make determinations as to what needs to be dealt with, what can be dealt with within that amount of money. The money that will be used, though, is not about football per se. It is about cleaning that area of the campus up, so it is more in keeping with the remainder of the campus.
Okay. And we're not, to the question that Regent Thomas posed before, which I thought was a good one. I know Regent Weeks had some comments as well. As well as Dr. Shields is serving in this interim role, and we all agree she's terrific, but we're not encumbering the next president of TSU then at this juncture on a path necessarily. This is okay.
That's
Because I thought
correct.
Regent Thomas made some very good points at our previous meeting. Okay.
Regent Reynolds, that's correct. This is not about a $20 million or $13 million project. This is about $1.5 million renovation, cleanup, make it a usable place for a variety of purposes.
And the State Building Commission is expected to act, or
They have
did.
acted
I'm
to
sorry.
approve
Okay.
this project.
Okay. Monday. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good.
Tom?
Dale, is it understood on that campus what's happening so that we don't open up another sore spot and an opportunity for criticism of the administration that's trying to sort of get TSU sort of focused? I mean, I just want to make sure that we don't walk into something and we've opened up a new issue that we really shouldn't have to deal with.
Right. And Regent Griscom, my understanding is, based on discussions with the president, there's been a robust discussion about this project, both with alumni, national organizations, with the student body. You'll probably recall the reason the fee request was before you was the student body had voted to assess this fee on themselves for this purpose, primarily for the purpose of bringing football back. We're not presenting that fee request at this point in time. That's being held in abeyance. I think that there is an understanding on the campus. Almost anyone you would talk to would tell you there is value in cleaning that up and making that as part of the core campus, a place that can be used in some productive way. So I do not believe that we're taking a step here that is going to cause us significant trouble down the road. I will say, as most of you understand, a higher education institution is a place with many voices, and many times not a uniform voice or a consistent voice. So it would not shock me that there'd be elements that would be critical of this, but I think by and large the university community is supportive of moving in this direction.
So the fee request is off the table at this point?
Correct.
And they're using other funds to make
Correct.
these renovations and so
They're reallocating resources internally to accomplish this repair work, this renovation work.
Okay, any further questions? All right, let's go ahead then to the next action item.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to give that update. The University of Memphis has been in discussions with us and frankly was in discussions prior to your board action about the fee structure at the University of Memphis Lambeth campus. During the period of time that we were discussing that transaction, they made it known to staff that they wanted to think about their mandatory fees. As you are aware, we charge the same fees at University of Memphis Lambeth that are charged to students on the main campus. They came to us with a request to reallocate certain of those mandatory fees for students at Lambeth. And those are illustrated or shown on the overhead, and there's a description within your board materials. In a pretty straightforward fashion, there's a debt service fee. A component of the program services fee is for debt service. There is no debt at the Lambeth campus, but as we're all aware, there are facilities issues at the Lambeth campus. So I would say one part of this request is to shift that debt service fee, the revenue from it, to the facilities fee, so that the Lambeth facilities could have the access to that to actually deal with some of the facilities issues present there. The health services and the campus recreation fees are both fees that the campus has asked be shifted into their student activity fee, with the recognition that as the campus becomes a growing campus, there will be more in terms of student health services and campus recreation that would need to be provided there. But at least initially, this shifting of money into student activity fee gives the campus flexibility to address student needs in a more comprehensive way, as opposed to having money siloed into health services and maybe not able to address another need. In terms of their fee actions, those are the requests in terms of shifting fees. Also, as a second piece, they are operating one of the residence halls. It's really the small apartment complex, and they have recommended residence hall rates for Oxley Commons. Those residence hall rates are consistent with the rates charged on the main campus and would recover the cost of operating those facilities as we require for our auxiliary enterprises. So staff recommends that you approve this request by the University of Memphis to reallocate fees at Lambeth, those fees at Lambeth, and to approve the residence hall rates at Lambeth.
Are there any questions by board members? If not, is there a motion to approve the reallocation of fees and the residence hall rates at Lambeth? Regent Roddy makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Regent Griscom seconds. If there's no further discussion, I think this is a roll call vote. Chris, if you call the roll.
Regent Ferris,
Aye.
Regent Griscom,
Aye.
Regent Reynolds,
Aye.
Regent Roddy,
Aye.
Regent Gatz. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Sims. The next item on the agenda is a review of proposed revisions to the policy on use of campus property and facilities, which would replace the current TBR student policy. And I call on Chris Modisher for that information.
The current policy on facilities use has been in place since 1990, and there is an off-campus speaker policy that has been unchanged since 1983. And you have before you today a revision and renumbering of the facilities use policy, along with proposed repeal of the off-campus speaker policy and the Administrative Procedures Act campus use rules. And among other things, these changes address changes developments in federal case law over the last 20 years, as well as some access issues with regard to employees and non-affiliated individuals like itinerant preachers and things like that. So pending any questions, we recommend this approval.
All right. Are there any questions about this? Any? This is updating our current policy, replacing the current policy with new policy.
John, can I ask?
Yes, go ahead, Tom.
Can you just, Chris, real highlight, what are the significant changes that are in this proposal compared to what was there in the 1990?
One of the things that we have done, the 1990 policy talked about affiliated groups and individuals, and well, let me first say the policy. This policy clarifies that this is not a totally public. We are not a totally public a forum. I mean, it's a semi-public forum, so it is really dedicated to the educational mission. And the former policy talked about affiliated groups and individuals. We have a very complex process by which student groups become affiliated. It referred to employees as well. We do not have policies on campus about how employee groups become affiliated. So what we've done is eliminate the reference to employee groups and instead said that you can have access, a group can have access by just an affiliated individual, which would be a single employee. So an employee can bring a group on campus if you go through this procedure. It also addresses access by itinerant preachers. We have a number of people who go around the country wanting to, speak their mind, and this would provide for an institution to designate a public forum, one place on their campus, where people could go through the process of applying and then come and speak. And
this has been reviewed by all of our presidents, or? Okay, okay.
Any more questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Regent Roddy moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Regent Griscom seconds. Any further comments or questions or revisions that you'd like to make? If not, Chris, would you call the roll?
Regent Ferris?
Aye.
Regent Griscom?
Aye.
Regent Reynolds? Regent Roddy? Regent Gatz? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September 7th meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital Outlay and Capital Maintenance. And I'd call on Vice Chancellor Gregory at this time for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good afternoon. This item, to kind of catch a little bit of the rhythm of what is going on here, at the September board meeting of each year, the regents hear the capital budget, which is the next agenda item on your list. The budget comes to you after being considered by the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital. And so this item is the approval of the minutes of the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital, showing to this committee that it has reviewed and is recommending to this committee approval of the capital budget, which I will present next.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Ad Hoc Committee meeting September the 7th? I need a motion.
I'll move it.
Regent Griscom moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Regent Reynolds seconds. Any discussion? Saying none, is this just a voice vote?
Yes.
Roll call? Okay, go ahead.
Regent Ferris?
Aye.
Regent Griscom?
Aye.
Regent Reynolds?
Aye.
Regent Roddy?
Aye.
Regent Gatz? Motion carries.
All right, the final agenda item is the presentation of the capital budget for fiscal year 2012, 2013.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to kind of catch the rhythm of what this does is this action today, if approved by this committee, is then forwarded to the full board tomorrow for its approval. If that occurs, then the capital budget will be forwarded to the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, where it is joined with the University of Tennessee's budget proposal, forwarded then to the governor for consideration in the upcoming budget. With that, then, I will begin the presentation, and I would direct your attention both to the screens and the material that is in front of you, that is the summary of the capital budget request 2012-2013. There's three classifications of projects that are recommended in the capital budget. They are capital outlay, capital maintenance projects, and project disclosures utilizing school bonds and other funding sources. And these three classifications are in accordance with the guidelines of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission and the administration for purposes of capital budget requests. The capital outlay projects on the standardized list have been objectively analyzed for relative priority according to the formula developed for this purpose. And there's four categories of evaluation in this formula. Their type of space in the project, the composite shortage, functionality and quality, and institution priority. And the formula approach has been in existence since 1994, and this has provided for reliability and consistency in the priorities from year to year. We're recommending to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, full funding for the first 6 of the 14 projects that are in the system capital outlay request for 2012 and 2013, and this is shown in your booklet on page number 5. The TBR is recommending approval of all 14 projects, but we're only requesting full funding for the first 6 projects listed on the capital outlay list. And in the left-hand column, you'll see the year in which each of the projects was placed on the list. No new projects have been added to this year's list. There are 14 projects that remain on the list. We were able to remove 3 projects from last year's recommendation because of the special capital outlay for community colleges and technology centers. Our recommendation for capital outlay request for 2012-2013 then is $280,690,000. And capital outlay funding is important to the quality of our facilities, and over the past 5 years, we've received an average of $40,856,000 each year. And even though we didn't receive any capital outlay this past legislative session, we're appreciative of the funding that we received over the past 5 years. It's also important to note that we need to maintain our existing facilities. And over the past 5 years, we've received an average funding for capital maintenance of approximately $22.1 million each year. That equates to less than $1 per square foot for maintenance, and we're appreciative of this funding we received over the past 5 years, and we must continue to make sufficient funding for capital maintenance a priority for our system. The formula that is presented on booklet page number 8 for our annual target funding for capital maintenance produces a target number of $88.2 million, and this equates to $3.64 per square foot, which also includes infrastructure. And the annual target number is a level of capital maintenance funding that we feel like we need for our facilities, and we need to strive for that each year. On your booklet pages 9 through 12, we have a summary of these capital maintenance projects, and we've worked carefully on this list to address the major needs of our system in a meaningful way. With over 24 million square feet of education and general square footage spread out over our 46 campuses and a number of our off-campus operations, we have both a constant and growing need for capital maintenance. These 91 projects are recommended for capital maintenance annual renewal for 12-13, and these projects total $87.3 million. In addition to the annual renewal request, there were 74 additional projects of what we call unmet capital maintenance needs that have been submitted by our campuses, and this totals an additional $135.2 million in capital maintenance needs. And these projects are distributed in a 5-year estimate of capital needs, and the total for capital maintenance projects is $222.5 million. All of these capital maintenance projects have been documented by our campuses and submitted for consideration for funding, and the projects that are over and above our annual renewal requirement for the capital maintenance have accumulated in part because our annual maintenance renewal has not been fully funded in the past years. Over the past 10 years, the funding received has been over $333 million less than what we show as our annual renewal target. On your booklet pages 15 and 16 is the list that our campuses are disclosing to be funded from school bonds or other funding sources. This is the project disclosure list that traditionally has been included in the governor's budget and gives state government somewhat of a heads up as to the projects that are being planned in addition to the capital budget request. These projects do not have a priority order. And funding for projects on this list can come from a number of different sources, including gifts, grants, and through the State School Bond Authority. Some of the projects listed with funding from student fees or housing may be dependent upon increases that will require approval at a future board meeting. And listing these projects does not substitute for that required approval. Some work could begin on these projects, however, no work will proceed that is dependent upon future increases until those increases are approved. 27 projects from 8 institutions are included on our project disclosure list. And now, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this next slide, and it's booklet page 17, shows a 5-year estimate of how the listed capital outlay projects might possibly be funded in the first 3 of a 5-year estimate. Since actual appropriations will vary from our annual request for capital outlay, the totals for years 2 through 5 will change. And an allocation for capital maintenance is shown along with the yearly totals, which produces a 5-year total of over $1.5 billion capital budget estimate. The next slide and booklet pages 18 and 19 show the unranked first and second priorities of our institutions, and these projects are pending future ranking and total over $668 million. And this list is disclosed for information only. The next slide and booklet page number 20 gives a recap of the staff recommendations for the 2012 and 2013 capital request for a total of $368 million. The Ad Hoc Committee on Capital Outlay and Capital Maintenance, chaired by Regent Ferris, has approved and recommends this request, and these recommendations are presented for your consideration and approval. Mr. Chairman, if I might, before I ask the committee to consider the capital budget, if I might make some comments to the committee. I am requesting and submitting for your approval today this capital budget. I would like for the committee and the board to be aware, as well as our presidents, that there's current discussions underway about how to get capital projects moving in both our system and the University of Tennessee system, as well as state government. Those discussions also will evolve around having us take a very fresh look at our priority system to make sure that our priority system completely aligns with the legislative directions on the Complete College Act. I think this is good news for us. I think it has an opportunity for us to progress what has been a stagnant list to move forward. Some things I'd like for you to contemplate as we begin thinking about how capital and Complete College might align itself. The Complete College Act talks about a statewide master plan to be produced by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. That master plan speaks about addressing the state's economic development needs, its workforce development needs. That master plan also talks about student progression. It talks about degree attainment and increasing degree attainment. It also speaks about using mission differentiation to be able to provide efficiencies and reduce redundancies. And as this committee is very well aware of, it also produces a new outcomes-based formula. And that formula rewards institutions for student success, for student retention, for progressing students along towards graduation. So while today I'm asking you, would you approve this recommendation, I also would like to say that I believe that in very short order, both the ad hoc committee on capital as well as this committee and the full board will likely be asked to be engaged in further discussions about our priority system, about alignment with Complete College, and about how we move capital projects forward. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that completes the staff recommendation to you, and pending any questions you might have of me, this does require a roll call vote.
Are there any questions of Vice Chancellor Gregory on the capital budget?
I would just ask, the progression of this, subject to this committee approving it, it would go to our full board. From there, does it go to THEC?
Yes. Yes, it immediately, after the board approves it, will go to THEC, and it will be combined with the action of the UT Board of Trustees as well. That is then combined and forwarded on to the Department of F&A for inclusion in the governor's budget.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
But one thing I would just kind of come back to is that, while this is standard practice, this is the way we have done this in years past, you know, there's a reasonable shot that we'll be asked to relook at some of these things between now and the time the governor actually develops a budget for presentation to the legislature. But we don't know that. We don't know exactly how that is going to play out, if it's going to play out. But there's a good chance that we'll be revisiting some of these decisions that are included within this proposal may very well change if there is a different way of looking at it and we're asked to approach it in a different way. But if that happens, it'll be part of a kind of a big plan that will include University of Tennessee, will include THEC, will include F&A budget and the administration.
How does this request compare with previous requests over the last?
It's very similar in size. Again, we were able to reduce the number of projects because of the opportunity we received through the community college capital outlay program, but it's very similar in project size.
All right, any other questions or comments on the capital budget request? Is there a motion to approve the capital budget request?
I'll move it.
Regent Griscoll moves the budget. Is there a second? Regent Reynolds seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, would you please say aye after Chris calls your name?
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Griscom. Regent Reynolds. Regent Roddy. Regent Gatz. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That completes the agenda. I want to call on Chancellor Morgan for a few comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank committee members for your action. Just to make an announcement, the governor has scheduled the higher education budget hearing for November 15th at 1:30 p.m. That would be on the ground floor of the State Capitol building, what's known as the Executive Conference Room. Our normal schedule has the committee chairs meeting that same day, and based on that schedule, typically the audit committee meets in the morning, we do lunch, and then the committee chairs meets that afternoon. So in order to accommodate this, I guess we had two choices. One was to just go right on with our committee chair schedule the way it was, not go to the budget hearing, or we could make some adjustments. Staff is recommending to you that we make some adjustments. So what we will likely have to do is rearrange the committee chair's day a bit, maybe start a little bit earlier in the morning, work through lunch, and then be able to finish up in time for us to be able to go to the budget hearing at 1:30 that afternoon. But I'd like each of you to think about whether or not you'd like to join us at the budget hearing. Traditionally, we've had some board participation, vice chairs in the past have gone, but the timing of this works out to our benefit. So if you'd like to go to the budget hearing, you're certainly welcome to do that. I, for one, would appreciate, the support there. And if you do want to go, we'll have to advise here just in the next couple of days of the names of folks that we expect are going to come, so they can make sure that the space arrangements are suitable. So if you'll let Sanja know today preferably, but certainly tomorrow before we leave here, I would very much appreciate that, and we can take care of notifying the folks in F&A budget. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Chancellor.
And that's true for this committee, but all other board members as well. It's not just the committee members.
All right, is there any further business to come before the committee? If not, the meeting's adjourned.
The next committee meeting is the committee meeting for the Personnel and Compensation. The members on that committee is Regent Paul Montgomery, who is the chair of the committee, Regent Farris, Regent Kisper, Regent Markham, Regent Copeland, Regent Roddy, and Regent Varlin. If you could come forth, we'll get set up to conduct that meeting. Thank you.